Good afternoon, everybody. It is the 27th of September 2024, and we saw a little bit of profit taken here in the market. We're still above a 5-day moving average that's continuing to rise. We're still above the week-to-date volume weighted average price, still above about month-to-date 20-day moving average, 50-day moving average, as well as the 200-day moving average and volume weighted average price for the year. We are getting a little bit overextended here, and that's probably the reason why we're starting to see this profit taken, and we found like we saw some buyers down at the volume weighted average price and 5-day moving average here on the shorter term time frame, and we traded under the volume weighted average price for the day, for most of the day, and that was kind of expected. We gapped up this morning, and that's just the way things are, but we're still above this rising 5-day moving average, and we will continue to do so as long as we stay above the 569 level here. Important level of interest is 567. If it breaks that, I would say, as well as a 5-day moving average, comes down to this area down there, 567, then definitely cautious until we. But the longer term time frame is trend is obviously upwards. So the Nasdaq broke the trend line, pulled back to the volume weighted average price for the week, and it's pulled down to the 5-day moving average here now. The Nasdaq's again overstretched, and but the 50-day moving average and the 20-day moving average are continuing to increase here in the next little bit, and they will continue to rise as long as we stay in this area. Now, if we and the 5-day moving average will continue to rise too, because obviously this data here is just a kind of onwards and upwards. Now, if we get a bit of a sell-off on Monday morning and we kind of come down to the 483 level, then that's when the 5-day moving average will start to flatten and decline, and potentially we will get stuck under this 5-day moving average as it starts to uh, roll over like this. Maybe we come down here on Monday morning, we come down and we get a bit of a rally, but then we get stuck, and then maybe at that stage we see a little bit more profit taking coming in. But generally, still above a rising 5-day moving average, and know where your stops are if you're involved. Semiconductors had again continued to sell off today. Let's just clear up this page a little bit here. They continue to sell off today under the volume weighted average price of the week, found buyers, and started to stabilize here around the week to date volume weighted average price. Still above a rising 5-day moving average. It seems to be a broken record. We continue to say the same thing. 50-day moving average is going to continue to decline until we get back up to rallying in this 255 area. 20-day moving average will continue to rise over the next little while as we get through this data, and we're still above the volume weighted average price for the year, as well as the 200-day moving average. So all in all, this is an orderly pullback. This is good to see. We're overstretched. That's what we need, and that's the way to look at it. The XPI is starting to looks like it's starting to rebuild here quite nicely. 50-day moving average will start to carry on inclining for the next few days. Will start to rise over the next few days, but obviously we have to make sure we're taking into consideration this data here, because if it starts to get to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, we're going to have to be up 103 area before that 50-day moving average is starting to average out. We would have to be up here. 20-day moving average over the next few days will start to rise, because the fact that now we're getting into this data, as long as we're above $99 over the next few days here, we are also going to continue onwards and upwards on the 20-day moving average. On the shorter term time frame here, we are still below a declining 5-day moving average, and that's where we seem to be finding resistance here on the right hand side. And it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It closed below the volume weighted average price and the month-to-day volume weighted average price for the week. And if we put a anchor from this high here, that's probably where we want to see rallying up to in the next day or two. And then as this 5-day moving average data starts to average itself out. Once it averages out this next day, this data here on Monday next week, this data, a 5-day moving average will start to flatten and start to rise. So keep an eye on the XBI over the next couple of days. It's likely where if it can hold in this area and the market stays upwards and we don't see a bigger profit taking in the larger market, then maybe the XBI will hold and rebuild, and maybe it's a good time entry if we can see something along the lines of, if we pull up here, pull back, get going. As at the same time, we're also going to be seeing this 5-day moving average start to flatten out here in the next few days. That's kind of what we want to see. And as we've seen, we can potentially buy in this spot, like kind of around here. That's kind of what I'm thinking, and that's where we buy. We buy a higher high above a flat to rising 5-day moving average. So depending on how it plays out, maybe that's kind of how things play. Russell 2000, again choppy, but it's building a bit better in here. Had a pretty positive day, but then pulled back for the end of the day. Pulled back to the volume weighted average price for the week as well, 5-day moving average. It's fairly, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's above a rising 20 and 50-day moving average, and that's just keep an eye on it. It's a nice pullback, and I would say if it probably gets back above 221, then maybe that's what piques your interest. That would give you a higher high above a flatter rising 5-day moving average. 5-day moving average is here, and it will continue to flatten and rise over the next few days if we pull back up to this 221 area. Energy names. Oops. Energy names continue to be the least exciting index. We're stuck below 200-day moving average, 50-day moving average, 20-day moving average, below the week-to-date volume weighted average price, month-to-date and yearly. It's just going to continue on downwards on the shorter-term time frame here, or below a 5-day moving average. It's going to continue down, and we're below the week-to-date. It's just not really worth looking at, and we will for the next little while. As you see, the next 2 days here, this data's all the way up here. It won't be till Wednesday next week we start to see some sort of potential change in this 5-day moving average. At which stage maybe we get a bit of a rally and we break out of it. But for right now, it's just heading down into the ground. Financials pulled back a bit today, so kind of follow the rest of the market. Seems to have made a potentially higher low here. I see higher lows and lower high highs and higher lows on the shorter term time frame on the right hand side, but I see lower highs and lower lows on. Well, I see a lower low and a higher high, so I see it's mixed messages in here. And I like to see the financials pull back a bit, but again, I'm not overly interested or involved in those. Have a quick look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's kind of trudging away here. It's still below a decline. Well, it's above a declining 200-day moving average, so I don't particularly trust that this is going to hold this rally. I would like to see it pull in, suck all the longs in over the fact that it's just breaking out over this area, pull back to this cluster of VWAPs, 50 and 20-day moving average here on the daily, and then rebuild from there. That would be my preference. Have a quick look for NVDA for the day. I'll find it here on my charts. NVIDIA is, let's just clear these off so we can see what's happening. So NVIDIA pulled back quite nicely today. It's still has a flat to declining 50-day moving average, and will, if we stay around this area, it's going to be kind of flat till it decides. I say it's mixed messages in here. 20-day moving average is starting to rise. 5-day moving average is rising, but and it will be for the next day and a half. But once we start getting into this 121 data, 122 data, that 5-day moving average is also going to start declining again. So just remain a little cautious if you're involved here. I would wait till it gets back up above 124 before considering kind of getting involved. And one last thing I want to just have a quick look at before the end of the week is the bonds. Bonds have been as below this 5-day moving average for the last kind of week and a half, selling off nicely. Now that the 5-day moving average is starting to flatten out in the next few days, if you think if this starts to flatten out over the next few days as this data starts to get rid of this data here, this 5-day moving average is going to start flattening like this and start to come up. So if you can get, if we see a bit of a shakeout, maybe we see something like this, then maybe we buy, here with a flat to rising 5-day moving average, we buy above kind of this level or something, and then, it's onwards and upwards. The longer term trend is continuing upwards, and, maybe there's some money to be made here in bonds. Overall, it looks pretty good. That's it for this week, folks. Hope everyone had a great week trading, and have a great weekend.